Hello, friends. Welcome back to Whispers from the Phylactery, specifically the Storyteller's Toolkit, where we talk our way through the various corners of one of our favorite hobbies, tabletop role playing games. I mean, if this showed up in your algorithm, you know why you're here. Today, I want to talk about something that I think not our campaigns more than almost anything else. Something players love to hate, and sometimes that they hate to love, though Book Talk seems to have a different opinion on the subject, and that is the villains of our story. They shouldn't just be the big bad, they shouldn't just be a stat block or a problem to solve. That's something I hate the most. But villains should be the kind of character in the story who lingers in the player's minds after the session ends. So, brief summary, what makes a great D&D villain? The short of it is they're a vision, not just a plan. That there is humanity in the darkness. A great villain should have a personal connection to the party. Otherwise, they're just random world-ending threat number 5 this week. A good villain has agency and momentum. They don't just sit around waiting for the party to go to them. They enact the world. And the last kind of quick summary is a good villain should challenge the player's beliefs. So let's basically just take a deep breath, settle in, and explore this topic together. Now, I really think a villain should be a vision, not just a plan. A plan dies with a person. A vision sparks idea and revolution. So, villains are defined by what they do. A great villain is defined by what they believe in and what they're willing to do to achieve that goal. Most of your mediocre common villains, they have a plan. They want to take over the kingdom. They want to summon a demon at low level. If it's a cult leader trying to enact a demon summoning to curse a town, that kind of thing. Or they just want to get revenge. But going back, a great villain has a vision or a worldview that's so strong in their mind, it absolutely makes sense and justifies that the end justifies the means. Don't get that backwards. Some villains might get it backwards. To them, it's just the means is what it is. But for my villains, the ones that I think are great, the end justifies the means. They are the hero of their own story, and they can't understand why the heroes are standing in their way when the world would be so much better if this thing happened. Maybe they think that the world is too chaotic and strict order is the only thing that can save it. And then you're looking at the Hell Knights from Pathfinder, chivalrous knights most of the time, that made pacts with demons and hell because they believe that only the strict order is what will enable them to preserve society and win against the celestial armies that are trying to destroy the material plane. Maybe they think that mercy is a cruelty and a swift blade prevents future suffering. This could be a cleric of death type character. Not a cleric of undeath or evil, but a cleric of death who sees the natural transition as something that is very important. And why would they allow people to go on to suffer more when they can end it now? They might be trying to usher in a new, I wouldn't say golden age, or they're trying to bring peace and tranquility to everybody in the afterlife, despite that's not how the whole cosmic order works in most campaign settings. Or maybe it's as simple as the villain, they're heroes themselves. They love something so deeply that they are willing to tear apart the world to protect it. And for this sort of thing, you're looking more like a Mr. Freeze type character. He loves his wife Nora so much that he becomes a criminal and a little bit insane, because Batman villain, but He's willing to tear down Gotham to save his wife. And I think, really, for a player side, when a villain's philosophy is clear and people can see that, well, it helps players understand them and it makes the conflict more meaningful. Do they simply agree, or but this is the wrong way to go about it, or do they absolutely disagree and the villain needs to be stopped because, well, they're insane? But sanity is a point of reference. The second part that I mentioned before, humanity in the darkness, one of the most powerful things you can do with villains is to make them people, to make them have good traits too. The the death cleric from before, he runs an orphanage. He really cares about children. But once they reach a certain age, then they're either recruited or they're spared living in such an awful world. He's really good with kids. He loves children. But he's still the villain. It doesn't have to be a lot of traits. It can just be one. It can be a couple. It should just make them alive in 3D. Maybe your villain is patient. Maybe they remember the name of every soldier who died under their command in their grand conquest. And this type of villain could be, oh, thinking about it now, a vast imperial empire who has been stretching further and further, but its inner government, whether if you want to plutocracy, republic, whatever have you, is becoming corrupt. And the only way that this general or this military leader can see going forward is a bloody coup and burning the empire to the ground to rebuild it from scratch. Um, of course, this makes the lives of the everyday people very awful. And to the heroes, he's a villain. But along his campaign, every soldier that falls, he remembers them. He remembers them as heroes. So, I guess circling back, this small spark of humanity, it can create tension and it invites empathy, even if the players reject it. Because let's be honest, people are complicated. Villains should be complicated. The best ones sort of reflect that, and you can see it, even if it's a slow burn to come out. There's always a little bit of a hint somewhere. And I think it's important to remember that evil can be evil. Your players don't need to redeem people. They just need to feel that this person didn't wake up one morning and decide evil sounds fun today. I'm just going to do it for the giggles. Yeah, I feel like I could go on, but it's a long topic. And if you're interested in hearing more of my thoughts about that, or more like ideas that I have for different villains, because I was just thinking of like three more, leave a comment down below asking about it. Third part, what I mentioned before, personal connection. Nobody cares if your villain is the flavor of the week. He is the world ending threat number 5. It just happened to be in your backyard, so you went to deal with it. And you did it. You don't really remember the campaign. You remember vaguely that it was something to do with a cultist summoning a demon. But you don't remember that it was the fallen archmagus, Eleanor, and she was trying to summon the demon Balthazar to cleanse the land of a vile plague that had been flowing across it. Never mind that summoning this requires massive blood sacrifice. It doesn't, the connection doesn't have to be tragic or some dramatic betrayal, but those are tropes for a reason. Sometimes it's just as simple as shared history. So working off of this, the Archmagus Eleanor, She could have been a mentor to one of the player characters, a wizard or sorcerer. She could have been a rival to a benefactor of theirs. Um, Depending on the scale of PCs involved, it could have been a former teammate, or someone that was a benefactor for the party, and they agreed they were trying to stop the plague and gripping the land, but their methods have gone too far, and now they are the villain in the story. So when the villain intersects with the characters' identities, not the players, because we're always trying to be the characters, and we don't want to get hostile with players. um, when the villain intersects with the characters' identities, then it's more than just a plot point that they're following up on. It becomes the shared story. They're not just stopping the demon summoning cultist, they are confronting their past or their friend. Um, they are choosing their values and their choices. Is it worth doing the greater good if it means hurting someone that's been in my life? That's looking at it charitably. It can also be what was it from Mortal Kombat? The Buffalo character burned her village to the ground, and she sought a vengeance for life against this man, and for him it was just Tuesday. I butchered that quote because I don't remember the movie that well. It wasn't a very good movie. Sorry. But it can be as simple as shortly after the start, the players intervene somehow, stop one of the villain's lower henchmen, or they mark themselves as a nuisance to the villain. And one of the characters, if they're a nobleman or just they have roots in the area, the villain either takes them hostage, kills them, does something to destroy their family, and now there's a personal vendetta against this villain. Or nothing pisses players off more, not characters, players, than taking something from them. If they have a hideout and they're stashing loot, the loot gets stolen. If they get robbed, if you take a player's treasure, they're going to be mad. They're going to want to kill that person. Doesn't matter if it was a gold or not. So I think emotional weight helps. The fourth part, agency and momentum. So what I see a number of people do, or even campaigns, published ones, and something that I really dislike is the villains are a background piece that doesn't move. Sort of like in a JRPG, you can go and grind for as long as you want before you go fight the bad guy. He's just there. It's in the background of the world. Or my favorite example of this, I suppose, is Fable 3. At the end of the game, the darkness is approaching. You have a timer. But as long as you don't do the little quest objective, you can spend several in-game years collecting money from being a slumlord and pay off defeating the villain that way. I hate that. In D&D, villains should have momentum and agency of their own. The clock is ticking in their plans. There's no threat to a villain if they're just waiting for the party to do something. The party doesn't have an extra month to travel to the big city to get magical equipment that is custom made for them. No, the ritual is happening next week. You need to get to the ritual site. Villains should move and act. The world should be alive, is what it boils down to. And I do have another video on clocks and fronts, which really ties into this, from Dungeon World. Kind of yoinked that to all my systems. So I'll link it up here somewhere and in the description. Clocks and fronts. Give the players a clock. It doesn't have to be a fast clock. It doesn't have to be like a meaningful clock, but there should always be a clock. The ritual is happening after a week. Trade is unsafe on the roads because they failed to stop this thing. Something like that. Because when your players start to feel the world changing because of the villain, then the stakes are suddenly more real. It's less of a, I hate to say it, less of a game and more of a, we need to stop this. Small moves and subtle shifts go a long way. Caravans going missing. A temple is desecrated. A new law is passed in a political game, or a symbol is painted across the city walls. These things are relatively small. They don't affect the party directly. The law could, I suppose, but they don't affect you directly. But what it says is the enemy is out there. They're moving. They're doing things. Are you just going to let that happen? Next part, number 5, is a villain who can challenge the player's beliefs. And this sort of ties back into the earlier part as well. One of the most interesting things a villain can do is force the party to ask, what do our characters really believe? Is what we're doing the right thing? Maybe the villain wants peace, but they're authoritarian. They're the Hell Knights. They do ensure peace, even if their methods are a bit brutal. Maybe, sorry about the fan in the background, that was just there. I can't help it. It's winter. Uh, maybe, like the Archmage Eleanor, they are solving a real problem in horrific ways. Maybe their methods are atrocious, but the villain's goal it reveals a flaw in the world the heroes ignored. The general coming back and waging a coup on the empire, the imperial empire that had become corrupt and rotten. When the villain's philosophy and goals challenge the characters and sometimes the player's worldview, it it really makes it more than a game and becomes something that can stick in your memory. Suddenly, it's not just a fight anymore. It becomes, metaphorically, a debate, a clash of ideals in this world. This doesn't mean that the party should always agree with the villain, but if the villain shines a light on a crack in the world, it might make them stop and wonder about it. Then again, sometimes villains are just evil. And those kind of villains can be good too. I think it's really hard to make a great villain out of someone that's just evil. Like an evil god is being resurrected. The cultists should have a reason for that. Although if the evil god is summoned, does he have a reason or does she have a reason? It is the primordial essence of the universe. It doesn't really have reasons for being evil. It is evil. That one gets trickier. I'll admit that those villains are tougher. If you'd like, I can do a video about those kind of villains and sort of break it down further. Just put it in the comments if you want to see it, because I'd really have to think about that one. The final point here, I suppose right before the final point, is you should let your villains lose with dignity. And I don't think it's talked about enough in D&D space. The way a villain falls really matters. They don't need melodramatic death scenes or speeches. What can help the party and the story is closure. Let the party see the consequences of that worldview, whether it collapses under its own weight or burns too brightly to sustain itself. The players are the heroes, and the villain will lose. That's what we aim for. The players should be heroes. The villain's plan should always be flawed, and it shouldn't work out in the end. In the long run, in the end, some villains die quietly. Some break under the stress of their defeat. Some repent, and then they're no longer villains. They're iffy. They're ambiguous. Some villains just laugh at their misfortune and some curse the world unto their final breath. A fair number leave a question behind. But whatever their fate, you should take care to really put effort into their fall. Give their ending the same care that you gave their rise to power and their rise in the story. Because typically a villain's fall is a punctuation mark. It's the climax of the story before it winds down. So I guess in the end, just recapping everything here, what makes a great D&D villain? A philosophy, a spark of humanity, a connection to the party, agency in the world, a challenge, and an ending that respects the journey that the party's taken. But I think above everything else, a great villain is someone who reminds us in their own twisted, usually tragic way that their story mattered. Yeah. So if you stuck around this long, thank you for joining me today during this talk. And I mean, if you enjoyed this dive into what I think makes a great D&D villain, feel free to take a look through the rest of the channel, the rest of the Storyteller's Toolkit. There are plenty of more topics waiting for you. Consider giving a like and subscribe for the algorithm, all that fun YouTube jazz. But until next time, friends, I hope the weather's not too rough on you. Have a good one.